man's flesh peeling to reveal a metallic core, and a sealed chamber guarding secrets too grotesque to comprehend. Crafted in the Gothic, introspective style of John Langan, this narrative immerses you in a multidimensional descent where curiosity transforms into a curse, where the past's darkest sins claw their way into the present with unrelenting force. Dare you read this by the flicker of a candle, letting its shadows weave into your dreams, or is the terror it unearths too near the edge of your own fears to confront? Are you prepared to gaze into the abyss this bunker reveals, knowing it may gaze back? The forest unfurled before Alex like a living entity, its late afternoon light filtering through a dense canopy of ancient oaks and pines, painting the ground in dappled gold and deep indigo shadows that seemed to writhe with a life of their own. The air hung heavy, saturated with the earthy musk of decaying leaves, the sharp resin of pine needles, and a faint, indefinable undertone that prickled the senses, an omen of the uncanny. Alex, a wiry figure with calloused hands and a glint of restless ambition in his hazel eyes, stood at the forest's threshold, his backpack sagging with the weight of a flashlight, a camera, and provisions for a day's exploration. He paused, drawing a deep breath to steady himself, the thrill of the hunt coursing through his veins as he unfolded a map from his pocket. The paper was a relic, soft and creased from years of handling, its edges frayed, its inked lines and scribbled annotations faded yet legible, a testament to a cartographer's obsessive precision. Trails snaked across it like arteries, marked with meticulous detail. A split oak scarred by lightning, a moss-covered boulder worn smooth by time, and a small, ominous X scrawled near the map's tattered edge. The bunker, whispered to be untouched, a virgin territory unspoiled by prior explorers. The promise of discovery ignited a fire in Alex's chest, mingling with a subtle, gnawing unease that whispered of dangers yet unseen. He adjusted the backpack straps, the leather creaking under his fingers, and stepped onto the trail. A faint suggestion of a path, barely discernible amid the ferns and brambles that clawed at his boots. Each step released a symphony of sounds. The crisp crunch of fallen leaves, the brittle snap of twigs, the rustle of undergrowth brushing against his jeans, a rhythm that echoed through the stillness. His eyes, sharp and vigilant, scanned the forest's depths, searching for anomalies. A glint of metal, a shift in the shadows, a sign of the map's promised landmarks. The split oak appeared first, its trunk a jagged wound from a long-ago storm, its bark peeling in dark, weathered strips, a silent guardian of the wild. Next came the moss-covered boulder, its surface a velvet tapestry of green, slick with moisture, exuding an ancient stillness that seemed to watch him pass. The landmarks aligned with eerie accuracy, and soon the bunker's entrance loomed into view. A rusted metal door embedded in a small hill, its edges swallowed by a dense thicket of vines and wild bushes, as if the forest conspired to erase its existence. The air grew denser, a palpable weight pressing against Alex's chest, the natural symphony of birdsong and rustling leaves falling into an unnatural hush, leaving only the sound of his own quickening breath. Crouching low, Alex set his flashlight on the damp earth, its beam cutting a pale swath through the dimness as he freed his hands to grapple with the vines. They were thick and sinewy, their tendrils clinging to the door with a tenacity that suggested they'd grown into its very metal, each tug sending a cascade of dirt, leaves, and small pebbles tumbling down the hill. The door groaned free, its surface revealing a lattice of rust that had eaten away at the edges, leaving jagged gaps where the metal had crumbled like decayed flesh. A cold struck him then, sudden and piercing, more than the evening chill. It was a frigid exhalation from the bunker's depths, a presence that seeped into his bones, raising gooseflesh along his arms. The forest silence deepened, birds ceasing their calls, leaves stilled in their rustle, the absence of life amplifying the sound of his own ragged breathing. He retrieved the flashlight, its beam trembling as he traced the door's decay, murmuring, "All right." The words a fragile anchor against the encroaching void. His heart pounded, a wild drumbeat of excitement and dread, as he pressed his shoulder against the metal. The hinges shrieked, a banshee's wail that sliced through the quiet, and the door yielded slowly, its resistance a final protest before revealing a blackness that swallowed the light whole. The smell hit him like a physical blow, stale, musty air thick with the rancid tang of decay and the metallic bite of rust. A miasma that clung to his nostrils and coated the back of his throat. He hesitated, the flashlight's beam quivering as it pierced the gloom, illuminating concrete walls slick with a sheen of moisture, their surfaces streaked with grime and adorned with faded posters. The corridor stretched before him, a narrow throat descending into the earth's embrace, its depths lost to shadow. The thud of the door closing behind him reverberated, a heavy finality that sealed him within, the sound lingering like a heartbeat in his ears. He took a cautious step forward, his boots scuffing the rough concrete, the sound reverberating faintly, a lonely echo in the oppressive quiet. The air was damp, saturated with the scent of neglect, the corridor a tunnel into a forgotten epoch, its walls bearing the remnants of a lost era, faded posters with curling edges, discolored by time, their blocky text possibly Russian, accompanied by a stern black and white image of a saluting soldier. The slogans, though unintelligible, carried a commanding weight, an accusatory tone that prickled Alex's skin, as if the walls themselves judged his intrusion. "What were you hiding down here?" he whispered, the words swallowed almost instantly by the oppressive quiet. A question posed to the ghosts that lingered in the bunker's shadows, their silence a more profound answer than any spoken reply. The corridor branched like the arteries of a decaying body, leading Alex into a series of rooms, each a frozen tableau of desolation and mystery, their stillness a stark contrast to the forest's muted life. The first was a kitchen, its air thick with the acrid stench of rust, a smell that burned the back of his throat and lingered like a bitter aftertaste, mingling with the faint metallic tang of old blood. He swept the flashlight over the scene, its beam dancing across rusted appliances that stood in eerie stillness. Stoves with pitted surfaces flaking like diseased skin, a refrigerator whose door hung ajar, revealing empty shelves coated in a film of dust and grime. A sink in the corner dripped with a monotonous rhythm, each plink of water against the rusted basin echoing like a heartbeat in the silence, a reminder of time's relentless erosion. The counters were barren, save for a single overturned tin cup, its dented surface catching the light, its emptiness a poignant symbol of abandonment. The floor creaked faintly under his weight, a groan of aged wood warped by moisture, and he raised his camera, the shutter's click reverberating like a gunshot as he captured the haunting stillness, the flash briefly illuminating the room's ghostly pallor. Leaving the kitchen, Alex moved deeper, the corridors cold intensifying, the smell of decay growing more pungent, a visceral assault that seared his nostrils and coated his tongue with a taste of rot. The next room was a dormitory, its expanse dominated by rows of bunk beds stretching into the shadows, their metal frames corroded and sagging under the weight of time's decay, their once shiny surfaces now a patchwork of rust and flaking paint. Mattresses lay in skeletal ruin, their fabric shredded into ragged strips, stuffing spilling out like entrails across the concrete floor, a macabre display of neglect. Alex approached a bunk, crouching to examine a nameplate affixed to the frame, its letters faint but legible, Sergei, perhaps, or Ivan. A fragment of a life erased by the bunker's silence. He traced the engraved metal with a fingertip, feeling the cold bite of history, and snapped another photo, the flash momentarily banishing the gloom, casting stark relief on the room's untouched state. The absence of graffiti, broken bottles, or trespassers' tags struck him as profoundly odd. Such forsaken places were typically defaced by curiosity seekers, their walls a canvas of rebellion. Yet here, the silence reigned supreme, as if the bunker repelled all but its original inhabitants, preserving its secrets with an almost sentient vigilance. Deeper he ventured, the air growing colder with each step, the smell of decay intensifying until it felt like a living entity pressing against his chest. The next chamber was a control room, its vastness cloaked in a thick layer of dust that rose in faint clouds with his movements, the particles catching the flashlight's beam like motes of forgotten time. Rows of ancient equipment lined the walls, consoles with switches and dials, their surfaces blanketed in grime, their labels faded into illegibility, a cryptic alphabet of a lost era. Alex brushed his fingers over a console, the dust adhering to his skin, and raised his camera, snapping photos from various angles, The shutters click a sharp intrusion into the quiet. At the corridor's end, a door unlike the others caught his eye. Pristine, reinforced with thick metal panels and rivets, its surface unmarred by rust or time, devoid of handle, keyhole, or visible seam. He approached, fingertips grazing its cold, smooth surface, the metal's chill seeping into his flesh, a stark contrast to the decay around it. He pressed first lightly, then with force, his shoulders straining against its unyielding mass. It refused to yield, a silent guardian of its contents. Frustration crept into his voice as he muttered, "Come on," his breath fogging in the frigid air, searching the walls for a mechanism. Nothing but smooth concrete, offering no answers. "Fine," he said, turning back, his mind churning with the sealed door's enigma. A sentinel guarding a secret he was determined to unravel. Its presence a weight on his soul as he resolved to explore further. As Alex delved deeper, the bunker's environment underwent a jarring transformation. The damp decay of the outer corridors giving way to an unsettling freshness, a clean, almost sterile scent that clashed violently with the ruin behind him, as if the past had been scrubbed away to make room for something new. A faint hum vibrated through the soles of his boots, a generator's whisper, barely audible yet undeniable, its rhythm a heartbeat pulsing through the concrete. This section felt alive, its walls smooth and polished, reflecting the flashlight's beam with a faint, ghostly sheen, the pale gray surface unmarred by grime or moisture. A stark contrast to the decayed ruins he'd left behind. The shift set his teeth on edge, a visceral warning that someone, or something, had been here recently, maintaining this sanctuary amid the desolation. The hum grew louder as he neared a room, its door ajar, a soft glow spilling into the corridor, casting long, trembling shadows that danced with his movements. He nudged it open with the toe of his boot, the hinges moving silently, revealing a larger space dominated by a cluster of strange equipment. Monitors lining the far wall, their screens alive with endless streams of numbers, symbols, and graphs, a digital tapestry of incomprehensible data. In the center stood a massive metallic cylinder, its polished steel surface seamless and unblemished, rising nearly to Alex's height, a monolith of modernity amid the bunker's decay. Cables snaked across the floor, their black rubber coating pristine, looping around the legs of metal tables and disappearing into small ports along the cylinder's base, connecting it to the monitors in a web of technological life. Alex stepped closer, his boots crunching softly on scattered debris. Small screws, bits of wire, shards of glass glinting like fallen stars, each step a violation of the room's sterile order. "What the hell is this?" he whispered to himself, the hum vibrating through his chest, a resonant pulse that seemed to sync with his own heartbeat. The cylinder's coldness bit into his fingertips as he traced its contours, finding no hinges, no handles, no markings of any kind. Just smooth, unbroken metal, a surface that defied explanation. He circled it slowly, the flashlight beam tracing its perfect curves, the light reflecting off its sheen like a mirror to his growing unease. He raised his camera, the shutters clicked sharp and jarring in the quiet, capturing the cylinder from every angle, the flash illuminating the room's sterile precision. The unease that had simmered in the back of his mind began to boil. This place wasn't abandoned. The equipment was too new, too well-maintained, its cables free of cracks or wear, a sign that someone or something still tended this hidden lair. Crouching, he examined the cables more closely, their rubber coating smooth and supple, untouched by time's ravages. Following one with his eyes, it vanished into the wall, a tendril in a vast network of wires hinting at a purpose beyond his grasp. He pressed his hand flat against the cylinder's surface, leaning into it slightly, the cold seeping through his glove. "Come on, give me something," he urged, frustration creeping into his voice, but it remained mute, a silent enigma. Scanning the room, he sought a clue, his gaze sweeping over the monitors, the cables, the walls, the nagging feeling of being watched intensifying with each passing second. The hum followed him as he moved to the next door, its edges faintly illuminated by the glow spilling from within, the air colder, heavier, laden with a presence that seemed to wait just beyond. His fingers tightened around the flashlight, the weight of the unknown pressing against his resolve, as he prepared to face whatever lurked in the bunker's living heart. Pushing the door open with the toe of his boot, Alex stepped into a room that felt like the epicenter of the bunker's dark pulse. Its air thick with a metallic tang and a faint, coppery scent that turned his stomach. The space was dominated by a metal table, its surface cluttered with surgical tools, scalpels, forceps, and syringes, their edges glinting under the artificial light, stained with dark, wet smears of fresh blood that glistened like wet paint. The tools weren't old or abandoned. They bore the marks of recent use, their steel surfaces scratched and dulled by hurried hands. Beside the table stood a chair, bolted to the floor, its leather restraints hanging limp, cracked and discolored, yet also stained with the same fresh blood, the dark red seeping into the seams. A cold sweat broke out across Alex's skin as he swallowed hard, the flashlight trembling in his grip, its beam casting jittering shadows across the room. The air around the chair felt colder, a frigid aura that seemed to emanate from its very presence, as if it had witnessed horrors beyond imagining. His eyes followed a trail of blood, a series of smeared droplets starting at the table's edge, leading toward a slightly open door on the far side. The beam jittered as his hand refused to steady, illuminating the crimson path that snaked across the smooth floor. Taking a slow, deliberate breath, he moved toward the door, his boots feeling heavy, each step a conscious effort against the growing dread. The blood trail continued into the corridor beyond, faint smudges against the polished concrete, and he followed, the flashlight cutting through the darkness like a lifeline. The corridor ended at a smaller room, its door wide open, a faint glow from a monitor drawing his attention. The screen displayed a live feed of a dimly lit cell, where a young man, Jack Carter, paced back and forth, his pale skin almost ghostly under the light, his messy brown hair clinging to his sweat-slicked forehead. His bloodshot eyes darted frantically, muttering silently, his lips moving in a rapid, desperate rhythm that carried no sound. Alex's chest tightened, a cold sweat prickling his skin as he watched Jack press his hands against the cell walls, his fingers dragging down the surface, searching for an escape that didn't exist. Spotting a set of keys hanging from a hook on the far wall, Alex stepped closer, the flashlight illuminating small metal tags dangling from each. One tag bore a symbol, the same etched into the sealed door he'd encountered earlier, a match that set his pulse racing. As he reached for the keys, his hand hesitated, glancing back at the monitor. Jack had stopped pacing, standing in the center of the cell, his shoulders heaving as he stared directly into the camera, directly at Alex. He froze, the keys clinking softly in his hand, a shiver running down his spine as he felt an inexplicable connection, as if Jack knew he was there, knew he was coming. Clutching the keys tightly, Alex turned back toward the corridor, the image of Jack's bloodshot gaze burning into his mind, a silent plea that spurred him onward. After 10 minutes of navigating the bunker's twisting halls, he found it, a door marked with the same symbol engraved on the key tag. Sliding the key into the lock, it turned with a soft click, and he hesitated, his hand resting on the cold metal handle, the weight of the moment pressing against his chest. He pushed the door open, revealing a small, cell-like room, its blank concrete walls empty save for a single cot shoved into the corner. There, sitting on the edge, was Jack, his shoulders hunched, head buried in his hands, his messy brown hair clinging to his sweat-slicked forehead, his thin frame trembling with each shallow breath. "Hey!" Alex said quietly, stepping inside, his voice sounding foreign in the stillness. Too loud, too small all at once. Jack's head jerked up, his bloodshot eyes locking onto Alex's. A moment of stillness before he stood, unsteady, gripping the cot's edge for support. "Who are you?" His voice trembled, hoarse and broken. "I'm Alex," he said, keeping his tone calm, a lifeline in the void. "I found you on the monitor. I'm getting you out of here." Jack stared, his chest heaving, then nodded slowly. I don't know how long I've been here," he said, his voice cracking. They took me. I was walking home, and then I woke up here." Alex stepped closer, the flashlight casting long shadows across the cramped room. "What's your name? Who took you? Do you know who they are?" he asked, his voice steady despite the knot in his stomach. Jack shook his head violently, hands clenching into fists. "My name is Jack Carter. I don't know who they are," he rushed out. "I don't remember their faces, just their voices. All they said was that I was part of an experiment, that it was important." His knees buckled slightly, and Alex reached out, gripping his arm to steady him, feeling the cold, clammy skin and the tremor running through his frame. "They injected me with something," Jack continued, his voice rising in pitch, a frantic edge to his words. I don't know what it was, but it's like I can't control my body sometimes. It feels like I'm not even me anymore." "Okay," Alex said firmly. "We're getting out of here. Can you walk?" Jack nodded shakily, but as he took a step, his legs wobbled, and he stumbled. Alex caught him, wrapping an arm around his back to support his weight. "Come on," he said, guiding him toward the door. "We need to move quickly." They stepped into the corridor, the flashlight beam cutting through the darkness, Jack leaning heavily against him. His breathing labored and uneven, his pale, sweat-drenched skin glistening faintly under the light. "Are you okay?" Alex asked, glancing at him as they moved. I don't know," Jack murmured, his voice faint. "I feel wrong, like something's crawling under my skin." Alex swallowed hard, his grip tightening as they retraced his steps, the air growing heavier, pressing down with each labored step. Jack stumbled again, nearly collapsing, and Alex stopped to steady him, noting his shallow, uneven breaths. "Just a little farther," he said, his voice a beacon of resolve. "We're almost out." Jack nodded weakly, leaning into him, his body trembling with every movement. "Whoever did this to you," Alex said, his voice low and determined, "they're not here now. We just have to get out. You'll be okay." Jack didn't respond, but his fingers tightened slightly on Alex's arm, a silent acknowledgement. They turned a corner, and Alex recognized the faint outline of the bunker's entrance in the distance. "Almost there," he said, urging him forward, though the words felt hollow against the suffocating air. Jack stumbled again, his knees buckling, and Alex had to all but drag him, his breathing shallow, his skin pale and clammy. "Stay with me, Jack," he said, his voice firm. "We're getting out of here. You're going to be okay." Jack nodded faintly, his head drooping as he leaned heavily against Alex. The exit loomed closer, a sliver of freedom, but then Jack stopped, his body going rigid. Alex stumbled forward a step before realizing, turning to face him. Jack clutched his chest, fingers digging into the fabric of his shirt, his breaths coming in short, violent gasps, his whole body trembling. "Jack, what's wrong?" Alex asked, his voice rising with alarm. He reached out to steady him, but Jack recoiled, staggering back a step. I don't." His words were cut off by a sudden, violent cough, his body convulsing as he hacked and wheezed. Alex moved closer, the flashlight trembling in his hand. Then he saw it, his skin was peeling. At first, it was subtle, just a sliver of flesh curling away from his forearm like a sunburn blistering and flaking. But as he watched, the peeling spread, the edges curling back to reveal something shiny underneath. Metal. "Jack?" Alex's voice faltered, a tremor of horror threading through it. Jack looked up, his bloodshot eyes wide with terror. "It hurts," he yelled, his voice cracking. "Oh God, it hurts." His body convulsed again, and this time the tearing was audible, a wet, sickening sound as his skin split apart. Strips of flesh hung limply from his arms and chest, exposing steel beneath, his fingers clawing at his chest, ripping away more of his own skin in frantic, jerking motions. "Jack, stop!" Alex shouted, stumbling backward, his mind reeling. Jack let out an ear-piercing scream, his voice warping mid-cry into something distorted and mechanical, a sound that was no longer human. His body twisted unnaturally, his spine arching as metal and flesh merged, his limbs elongating, the joints snapping and reforming with a sickening crunch. Jagged metallic protrusions tore through his skin, glinting in the flashlight's beam. A grotesque fusion of man and machine. "Jack!" Alex shouted again, though he knew deep down that Jack was gone, lost to the horror that had consumed him. The creature raised its head, and Alex froze. Its eyes, once bloodshot and human, now glowed a searing, unnatural red, burning with an intensity that made his stomach churn. Its mouth opened, but the sound that emerged wasn't a scream. It was a roar, a deep, metallic growl that rattled in Alex's chest, shaking the air around him. His legs moved before his mind could catch up, stumbling backward, the flashlight shaking as he kept it trained on the creature that had once been Jack. It lurched forward, its limbs scraping against the walls with a hideous screech, its movements jerky, almost insect-like, as if the metallic body hadn't yet learned how to function. "Stay back!" Alex yelled, his voice cracking as he tripped over his own feet, the creature lunging at him, its glowing eyes locked onto his, its jagged limbs outstretched. It swiped through the air where he'd stood a second earlier. He hit the ground hard, the flashlight skittering out of his hand and spinning wildly, its beam dancing across the walls, casting chaotic shadows that amplified his disorientation. Scrambling to his feet, his heart pounding so loudly he could hear it in his ears, the creature turned toward him, its movements faster now, more deliberate. He didn't think. He just ran, his boots pounding against the smooth floor as he sprinted back into the depths of the bunker. Behind him, the creature let out another distorted roar, a sound that chased him through the corridors, a relentless predator on his trail. He didn't dare look back, couldn't afford to lose focus, the walls blurring in his peripheral vision as his mind churned with fear and disbelief. Jack was gone, whatever experiment had been inflicted upon him had turned him into that. A monstrosity born of science and sin. The corridor twisted and turned, the bunker's layout suddenly feeling like a labyrinth designed to trap him. Its concrete walls closing in with each step. His lungs burned, his legs ached, but he didn't stop, couldn't stop. The sound of metal scraping against concrete grew louder behind him, the creature gaining with every second. The screech of steel on concrete reverberated through the narrow space, a cacophony that drowned out his ragged breaths, his pulse a frantic drumbeat in his temples. Ahead, he spotted a door off to the side, small and unmarked, barely noticeable in the dim light. Without thinking, he veered toward it, slamming into it with his shoulder and fumbling for the handle. It turned, and he shoved the door open, throwing himself inside. The room was cramped, cluttered with shelves and crates stacked against the walls, a chaotic refuge in the bunker's depths. His flashlight's beam swept over the space as he spun around, slamming the door shut behind him, his hands moving on autopilot. He grabbed a rusted metal shelf, a heavy crate, a loose piece of piping, shoving them against the door in a frantic barricade. Pressing his back against the far wall, the cold concrete biting through his hoodie. He waited, the creature's growls growing louder, its distorted voice echoing through the corridor, a mechanical snarl that was both alien and disturbingly familiar. The scraping of its claws against the door made him freeze, a shiver racing down his spine as he bit down hard on his lip to stifle a sound. It was right there, just on the other side, its presence a palpable weight against the thin barrier. He listened, the creature prowling outside, its movements jerky and uneven, the clanging of its metal limbs against the walls sending vibrations through the floor beneath him. It stopped for a moment, the silence deafening, no growls, no scraping, just a void that pressed against his resolve. Then the door rattled violently, the barricade groaning under the force of the creature's weight, and he flinched, his fingers tightening around the flashlight. The rattling ceased as abruptly as it had begun, replaced by a low, angry growl that vibrated through the room, a sound that seemed to search, to wait. Minutes stretched into eternity, his legs aching from standing rigid, his back pressed so hard against the wall it felt like he might meld into it. Finally, the sound began to fade, the metallic scraping growing quieter, the growls more distant. He waited, counting the seconds in his head, the silence returning with a tentative fragility he didn't trust. Slowly, He pushed off the wall, his legs trembling beneath him, and approached the barricade. The flashlight beam steadied as he forced his hand to stop shaking, dismantling it with painstaking care, shifting the crate and piping just enough to crack the door open. The corridor outside was empty, the air still, and he slipped out, his boots barely making a sound against the floor. He didn't waste time, the flashlight flickering as he moved through the dark, twisting corridors, shaking it until the light steadied. Every shadow a potential threat, every sound magnified in the silence. Then, in the distance, a roar, low but unmistakable. The creature was still hunting, and he felt a chilling certainty that it knew where he was. His pace quickened, navigating the halls, the bunker seeming endless, its corridors looping back in ways that defied logic. Another roar, closer this time, spiked his pulse, and he broke into a sprint, the flashlight dimming, its beam faltering. He shook it harder, the light flaring briefly, illuminating the faint outline of a door ahead. The exit. He didn't think, just ran. The creature's roars echoing behind him, the scrape of its claws against the walls closing the distance. He threw himself at the door, shoulders slamming into the cold metal as he fumbled for the handle. It turned with a groan, and he shoved it open, quickly slamming it shut behind him. The cold air hit him, sharp and biting against his sweat-drenched skin, and he collapsed onto the forest floor, gasping for breath as he clutched at the dirt beneath him. For a moment, he lay there, his body trembling with exhaustion, the creature's roars audible from within but fading, unable to follow. He stared at the bunker's entrance, his breath forming clouds in the frigid air, the vines swaying gently as if to reclaim their territory. He didn't dare move, not yet, closing his eyes as the cold seeped into his bones, steadying his breathing. He was alive, but the escape felt incomplete, the bunker's curse clinging to him like a second skin. Back in his apartment the next morning, the sound of city life, car horns, distant chatter, the hum of traffic, seemed surreal, a jarring return to normalcy that clashed with the horrors etched into his memory. He sank into the chair at his desk, the apartment a sanctuary of familiar walls and soft light. Yet the blinking cursor on his laptop screen was a relentless reminder of the bunker's terrors. The folder labeled Bunker loomed on the desktop, a portal to memories he wasn't ready to face, its presence a weight on his chest. His hands trembled, the coffee made hours ago sitting untouched beside him, its surface a cold mirror to his own exhaustion. His hoodie hung loose over his shoulders, the fabric heavy with the damp chill of sweat that hadn't fully dried since the night before, a tangible link to the bunker's depths. He took a shallow, shaky breath and clicked the folder, the images populating the screen in neat rows, each a dagger to his composure. His stomach churned as he clicked on the first photo, the surgical tools gleaming under the bunker's harsh artificial light, their edges stained with faint smears of blood that glistened like wet ink, the metallic scent flooding back with nauseating clarity. He remembered the room's sharp, coppery smell, clinging to his nostrils like a phantom. His hand twitched on the trackpad, clicking the next photo. The chair bolted to the floor, its cracked leather straps dangling limply, the fresh blood stains seeping into the seams, the faint creak of the leather echoing in his mind as he'd stood closer, the air growing colder around it. Another photo, the trail of blood leading out of the room, a crimson thread through the bunker's heart. He clicked again, and Jack's face filled the screen, his bloodshot eyes wide with terror, staring directly into the camera as he had into the monitor. His fear etched into every line, every shadow under his eyes. Alex forced himself to look away, the weight of that gaze too much to bear. "I can't do this," he muttered, his fingers moving on their own, selecting the entire folder. He hovered over the delete button, hesitating. Deleting them felt like erasing proof, like pretending it hadn't happened, but he couldn't look at them again. With a click, the folder disappeared, the screen blank save for the faint reflection of his face. Hollow eyes, dark circles deeper than he'd ever seen, hair sticking out in uneven tufts, damp with cold sweat. He closed the laptop slowly, the faint click of the lid shutting breaking the silence, his hands resting on its cool surface, grounding him for a moment. The room felt too small, the walls pressing in closer with every second, the air thick with the memory of the bunker's hum. His gaze drifted to the window, the blinds half open, pale morning light spilling through, casting soft patterns on the floor. He stared at the glass, his reflection superimposed over the street below, his eyes searching the shadows outside, half expecting a flash of metal, a pair of glowing red eyes staring back. There was nothing, just the empty street, the faint rustle of leaves in the breeze, the distant sounds of a city waking up. But the memory of Jack lingered, in the corners of his mind, in the spaces between the shadows. He turned away, his hands clenching into fists, nails digging into his palms, the pain a tether to reality. He couldn't go back. Not to the bunker, not to the woods, not to the places he'd once explored with reckless abandon. There were things out there, things people weren't meant to find, weren't meant to see. He'd always thought he could handle it, that he could face whatever secrets the world had buried, but he hadn't been ready for this. He didn't know what had happened in that bunker, what kind of experiments had been done to Jack or to the others who had come before him, but he knew one thing for certain. He was done. Done with the woods, done with exploring, done with chasing secrets that were better left buried. The bunker had taken something from him. His courage, his innocence, his belief in the world's benign mysteries, and he wasn't sure he'd ever get it back.